Amara wiped her tears as she stirred the pot of soup on the stove. The bruises on her arms were still fresh from the night before. Somto, her husband, had lashed out again over a minor issue. She hadn't picked up his call fast enough. This was the life she had endured for 10 years. She had given her all to the marriage, her loyalty, respect, and kindness. But Somto only saw these as weaknesses. Living in Rivers State with their only child, Amara often found herself trapped between the expectations of her culture and the abuse she faced daily. Whenever she complained to her parents, their advice was always the same: marriage is for better for worse. You made a vow, and you must keep it. A woman must endure her husband's shortcomings. Even the thought of divorce was unthinkable. In their village, a divorced woman was mocked, her family shamed, and her future prospects destroyed. What will people say? Her mother always reminded her. Do you want to bring disgrace to this family? So, Amara stayed. But deep in her heart, she knew she couldn't live like this forever. Every slap, every insult, every public humiliation planted a seed of bitterness within her. Sometimes, at night, as she lay in bed nursing her wounds, dark thoughts crept into her mind. Should she poison him? Should she wait until he was old and frail to exact her revenge? Or perhaps there was another way. One evening, Somto came home with surprising news. I'm tired of this country, he declared. I've decided we're moving to London. I've already sold some properties and gotten our visas. We leave in a few months. Amara's heart skipped a beat. The thought of leaving Nigeria was both thrilling and terrifying. She had heard stories about life abroad, about how women had rights and were treated with respect. Could this be her chance to escape her suffering? Or perhaps, her chance to turn the tables on Somto? The months flew by, and soon, they were on a plane to the UK. Everything felt new and overwhelming. The cold weather, the strange accents, the unfamiliar streets. But for the first time in years, Amara felt a spark of hope. In London, Amara began to learn about her rights as a woman. She met other African women who shared their stories, women who had fought back against abusive husbands and won. Slowly, she realized that she didn't have to endure Somto's abuse anymore. She had power, real power, and she could use it. Somto, on the other hand, remained oblivious to the changes in his wife. He continued his old ways, yelling at her, belittling her, even hitting her in their small London apartment. But Amara was no longer the timid, submissive wife he had known. She was watching, waiting, planning. One cold winter evening, as Somto sat in the living room scrolling through his phone, Amara stood by the window, gazing out into the night. Her mind raced with possibilities. Should she report him to the police for domestic violence? Should she have him deported back to Nigeria? Or should she wait, bide her time, and strike when he least expected it? Somto noticed her staring and frowned. "What are you thinking about?" he asked gruffly. Amara turned to him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Oh, nothing," she replied, her voice calm and measured. But in her eyes was a glint Somto had never seen before, a glint of determination, of resolve, of quiet vengeance. Amara's transformation was slow but deliberate. She began documenting every instance of Somto's abuse. She purchased a small recording device and hid it in her clothes, capturing his harsh words and the slaps he still dared to deliver even in their new home. She took pictures of her bruises and kept a secret journal detailing every instance of mistreatment. She also started learning the laws of the UK. She discovered that here, domestic violence was not ignored or brushed aside. Women had the power to stand up against their abusers, and the system would back them up. Slowly, she felt the weight of years of suppression lift from her shoulders. At the same time, Amara began to turn the tables on Somto in subtle ways. She refused to answer his calls when he shouted for her from another room. When he asked for food, she would tell him coldly, "You have 2 hands. Make it yourself." One evening, Somto stormed into the living room after work, fuming. "Amara, where's my dinner?" he barked. "Amara, sitting calmly on the couch, didn't even look up. "It's in the kitchen," she said, flipping a page of her magazine. "What do you mean, it's in the kitchen?" Somto yelled. "I just worked all day. You're supposed to have it ready." Amara put the magazine down and fixed him with a calm, piercing stare. "And I'm supposed to let you treat me like a slave?" she asked. "Times have changed, Somto. If you're hungry, go and cook." Somto was too stunned to reply. For the first time in their marriage, he saw something in Amara's eyes that he couldn't comprehend. As the days passed, Amara began asserting herself more and more. One day, while Somto was yelling at her, she pulled out her phone and held it up. "Go on," she said, her voice cold. "I'm recording everything." "What?" Somto froze. "I've been documenting your abuse for months now," Amara continued. "Every slap, every insult, every time you humiliated me. I have pictures, videos, and audio recordings. Do you know what that means in this country? I could have the police here in minutes. They'll drag you out of this house, and you'll never step foot here again." Somto's face turned pale. "You wouldn't dare," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Try me," Amara said, stepping closer. "One call, and your life here is over. And don't forget, you sold everything in Nigeria to come here. Where will you go? What will you do?" From that moment, the balance of power shifted. Somto, terrified of being deported or thrown in jail, began to comply with Amara's demands. She made him wash the dishes, clean the house, and run errands she never would have dared to ask for before. One morning, as Somto scrubbed the bathroom tiles, Amara leaned against the door frame, watching him with a faint smile. "It suits you," she said mockingly. Somto didn't respond. He kept scrubbing, his hands trembling with anger and humiliation. But Amara wasn't done. She leaned closer and whispered, "If you think this is bad, just wait. I'm only getting started." Later that evening, as Somto sat quietly in the corner of the living room, Amara stared out of the window, her mind racing with possibilities. Should she report him to the authorities now, or let him stew in his misery a little longer? Should she take full control of the house and finances, or was there a more fitting punishment for all the pain he had caused her? Her lips curled into a slight smile. She would take her time. Somto needed to feel the weight of his actions, just as she had for the past 10 years. But then another thought crossed her mind. What if Somto found a way to fight back? What if he tried to regain control? Amara turned to look at him. He was sitting silently, staring at the floor, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the clenched fists on his lap. He was quiet now, but for how long? My amazing friends, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? If this story touched your heart, gave you chills, or kept you hooked, let's keep the magic alive together. Sparkles like to show your support. Subscribe to join this growing family, and share the inspiration with someone who needs it. Together, we can spread love, hope, and powerful stories.